Hey guys, today we're going to go through 1.2. We're actually going to spend 3 days on 1.2. So today we're going to be solving these multi-step equations. Tomorrow on our distance learning day, we're going to be adding problems with parentheses. And then on Monday, we're going to go through a couple word problems. So we're going to be spending a little bit of time here on these multi-step equations. So you should be on page 9 here in your student journal. Okay, remember now we're taking our notes in our student journal, and then our homework, it's not in the student journal, it's in the textbook. So go ahead, you may want to pause the video for a second to get this definition. I got rid of the mean because we don't really need it for this unit. We'll go over that if we need to, but inverse operations are important. Okay, so inverse operations, we've got operations that undo each other. Okay, so addition and subtraction are inverse operations, and multiplication and division are inverse operations. So as we're trying to solve these multi-step equations, we've got to think, just like we did on our one-step equations, how can we undo each one of these operations so that we can get to just the variable? All right, so I would like you guys to write some of these steps. Again, if you always need to pause it, you can always do that. Okay, so it says when we want to solve these multi-step equations, we've got to simplify each side of our equation if necessary. Okay, that's what I wrote right here. We want to simplify each side. So that means first you want to distribute anytime you have parentheses. And then we want to combine our like terms. So that's why we spent the first part of this week working on distributive property and combining like terms, because that makes it a little bit easier when you have to simplify some of these equations. Then it says we want to use inverse operations to isolate our variable. Okay, so isolate, get on its own your variable. You want to see just x or y or z or whatever on one side of the equation and just a number on the other. Okay? So the first step is to make sure that you have all your variable terms on one side. Okay, if you have a 2x on one side and a 3x on the other, you've got to do something, okay, inverse operations usually, to get just that x on one side, right? And then you want to continue performing these inverse operations until you just get x is equal to something, until you isolate that variable. So in this example, you'd see, okay, I'm multiplying x by a -1. So if I multiply each side here by a -1, okay, -1 times -x is positive x. 1 times -1 is -1. Okay, we'll look at a couple different examples. All right, so go ahead over to that next page in your student journal, so to page 10. I want to go over a couple examples with you guys, and then I'll be sure to post this whole page to Schoology so you can look at all of these examples if you would like before you get started on your assignment. So the first one I want to look at is this very first number 1 right here. Okay, so I have 3x plus 4 is equal to 19. So the thing that some people struggle with when we start doing these multi-step is they're not sure what to do first. Okay, generally, if you can get the x term on its own first, that's what you want to do. Okay, so you've got this 3x term. You want to get rid of this positive 4, this plus 4. You're adding here. So you want to use that inverse operation. You want to go ahead and subtract a 4 from each side. Okay, so we end up with 3x, this plus 4, and then minus 4. So if you have a positive 4 and subtract 4, it cancels out. Okay, so that would just be 0. Go back. All right, so 3x is equal to 19 minus 4 is 15. All right, we've almost isolated that variable. We've got a 3x. We're multiplying this x by 3 right now, so the inverse of multiplying is division. Okay, so we're going to divide each side. If you're going to do something to one side of the equation, remember, you've always got to do that to the other side as well. Okay, so we've got this 3x divided by 3. That's going to cancel out. The 3's are going to cancel out, and we're just left with x. And on the other side here, we've got this 15 divided by 3. That's going to give us 5. All right, we've got just x is equal to a number, and that is our answer. All right, and then over here, we've got, let's look at number 5 and number 6, because they're similar, but we solve them out a little bit differently. Okay, so in each one we have our variables being divided by something, and we're also adding or subtracting a value. But let's look at number 5 first. Okay, here we have a variable. It's being divided by this number, and then we're also subtracting here on a separate term. Okay, we're only dividing the variable by 4 here. So in order to isolate this f, first I'm going to get rid of this variable here. Okay, sorry, not a variable, the constant. We're going to get rid of the 5. Sorry, I misspoke. We're going to use the inverse operation, so we're subtracting here, so we're going to add 5 to both sides. That negative 5 plus 5 is going to cancel itself out. So I'm going to be left with f divided by 4 is equal to that negative 9 plus 5 is going to be negative 4. All right, so that is our equation for now. F divided by 4 is equal to negative 4. So I want to think, okay, well, I'm dividing right now by 4. So what's the inverse operation of division? It's multiplication. So I'm going to go in and multiply each side of the equation by 4. Okay, these are going to cancel out. So this is just going to be f is equal to negative 4 times positive 4. That's going to be negative 16. We've got our variable equal to a number, so that's our answer here. All right, and then for number 6, it's similar, right? We're adding this negative number and we're also dividing, but here we're dividing this whole thing, both the variable and the constant term we're dividing. So if we want to undo this division, we're dividing this entire side of our equation by 3. So in order to undo that, I want to go ahead and multiply first. Okay, see the difference here? We're only dividing one variable. So in order to get that variable on its own, first we have to add. But here, since it's the entire side of this equation, I want to go ahead and multiply this whole thing by 3. Okay, so over here, this 3 times 3 is going to cancel out. We're just left with this q plus negative 5 is equal to 8 times 3 is going to give me 24. I can just change this to q minus 5. Okay, remember adding a negative number is same as subtracting, so q minus 5 is equal to 24. I can add 5 to both sides. Okay, inverse operation of subtraction is addition. So I'm going to add the 5 to both sides. And I end up with q is equal to 29. All right, so make sure as you're going through these different problems, you're keeping in mind all these different rules for simplifying. Okay, I see a few problems in here where you would need to combine like terms before you continued on. Okay, quite a few here. Eventually, we're going to get to some problems where you're going to have to distribute. We'll get to those tomorrow. Okay, so for today, just go ahead and get started on your assignment. And remember, that's in our textbook. So either go to Big Ideas or you can look at the PDF that I've posted right there in your assignment on Schoology. See you guys tomorrow.